CNN Tonight, I'm Don Lemon. Just a little past 3 here on the East Coast, and we're live with the breaking news for you. A little past 11, excuse me, 3 after 11 here on the East Coast. We're live with the breaking news for you tonight. President Trump finally calling the families of troops who lost their lives in the Niger raid and telling the widow of Sergeant David Johnson, quote, he knew what he signed up for, but when it happens, it hurts. Earlier, I spoke on the phone with Congresswoman Frederica Wilson. She was there when the sergeant's widow was called by the president. Watch this.
We were in the car together in the limousine headed to meet the body at the airport. So I heard what he said because the phone was on speaker.
What did he say?
Well, basically he said, well, I guess he knew what he signed up for.
I want to get right to CNN's political analyst April Ryan, CNN political commentators Matt Lewis and Alice Stewart, and CNN contributor Jason Kander. This is really a tough discussion to have, April. You have been there before for these conversations. You were by the side of President Bush, 43, when he met with wounded soldiers, and also with President Obama when the caskets of soldiers returned home. What do you make of the representative's account of what happened tonight?
Don, it's sad. If indeed what Congresswoman Frederica Wilson says is true, and I have no reason to doubt her, because she is someone who has a lot of compassion. I mean, she is a woman who hired Trayvon Martin's brother as an intern in her office to help the family. And it sounds like, just like her, to be in the car with the widow of the Green Beret Johnson. Like you said, I was at the hangar at Andrews Air Force Base when the bodies came home from Benghazi. Such a solemn moment when President Obama received those bodies, as well as Secretary of State at the time, Hillary Clinton, and also former Secretary of State Colin Powell was there. Because of the severity of this, I mean, I have been to Walter Reed, the old Walter Reed, used to be on Georgia Avenue, just up the street in Washington, D.C. with then President George W. Bush. We went to the NIH to see wounded. So, I mean, he was always going, and I just cannot. This is tough. I mean, we have a president who is the moral leader, who is supposed to support and unite. And here you have a widow whose husband was not found until days later. He was the last one left, and hearing that he can't have an open casket and to say something like that. My question is, did he say this to the other family members? And if so, it's not good that he said it to this one, and it's not good that he said it to the other. This president is not a wordsmith. We know this. He is not a wordsmith, but in times like this, words matter, compassion matters, and it sounds heartless.
I want to get the White House's response in, and this is the president's conversations with the families of American heroes who've made the ultimate sacrifice are private, Alice. It's about common decency and respect. And listen, I'm sure the president will explain what he meant by it. We know now that he did call the families of the 4 officers killed in Niger a day after he was asked about it. For the president who said it's disrespectful to take a knee during the national anthem, why a 13-day delay for fallen heroes to this country?
I think that question may never be answered. I can't imagine the grief that this family and all the families are going through. It's got to be gut-wrenching. And to hear this from the president has to pour salt in the wounds. But look, this is a difficult time for the family, for our country, and certainly for the president. Could he have chosen his words better? Yes. But the fact is, these conversations are private. And I think if this had been an in-person meeting, it would have been a little bit better. You could have...
Maybe they rushed it afterwards, call her in the car as she's about to...
I think if you had the body language of an in-person meeting, that would be a much, much different story. And as very, very difficult. I've been with Governor Huckabee, who has a pastor's heart, who's been in situations where we've had a school shooting, where we've had deaths and tornadoes. He has a pastor's heart. He is good with this. This is not the president's forte, and I think it's unfortunate given a time
But
like
he
this.
is president of the United States.
He certainly is, April, and this is just a difficult time. And is there a playbook for this kind of thing? There's absolutely not. But this is a time that, right now, unfortunately, we're talking about this instead of honoring these brave heroes.
And the right words need to be used. Hold on, I'm going to bring you gentlemen in. April, you okay though? Because you sound like you're very emotional about this.
I'm okay, Don.
Okay. Jason, you're a former Army captain. In your opinion, here's what he sees: is he knew what he signed up for, but when it happens, it hurts. Is that acceptable way to speak to a widow?
It's nauseating. But you know what? I've heard people say this before. I think we probably all have. We've all heard people find out about soldiers dying and say something like this. And so I think it's important to talk about why people say that. People say that because they're seeking emotional distance from the situation. People say that because they want to avoid feeling that pain. And when you're the President of the United States, when you're the Commander-in-Chief, you need to be able to lean into that situation and not just, yes, it is absolutely deeply important in that situation, human being, to be able to console that widow, to be there in that moment. But let me tell you why. There's a larger reason why I think this matters so much, which is that I want a president, any president, doesn't matter who, when they're making a decision about sending people to a dangerous place, I want them to have as one of the things in their mind the visceral, emotional feeling. And that memory of that feeling in their mind is a factor when they make decisions about sending Americans into danger. Mm-hmm. And if President Trump is seeking to distance himself emotionally from this, which is the reason people say that's what they signed up for, then I don't know if he has the ability to factor in that feeling and the reality that people don't come home, that the most important person in your life may be gone in an instant when he makes decisions about sending people into danger.
And can we talk about the optics of this, Matt? And I don't want to pile on, but on Saturday, October 7th, that was the day the body of 25-year-old Army Sergeant David Johnson was returned to Dover Air Base. President Trump was golfing. These 4 soldiers were killed in an ISIS ambush in Niger. Do you think the White House is handling the entire incident as... Is it a little odd, and are they rushing the response instead of maybe you say, I'll call you, you're going to meet the casket, we'll call her tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Is that a good time?
Yeah, I mean, I think yesterday we were all saying he needs to make these calls. Today we're saying maybe he shouldn't have made these calls. Maybe that wasn't a good idea. If his goal is to, if the primary goal, presumably here is to console the widow, he obviously failed and failed miserably. However, I'm going to be a little bit contrarian here. If you just take what he said, the quote. Now we don't know the context clearly.
I said that. I gave a caveat. We don't know, but still, It sounds awful.
To me, the quote, I think it's open to interpretation. So, for example, if you say it sort of glib and dismissively, like, "Oh, this is what they signed up for," that is horrific. But I think there's a way to say it that is, this is heroic. Like when people sign up to join the military, to be first responders even, certainly to be Green Berets, that moment that they sign up is a heroic moment. And whenever they're deployed, they know there's a chance that they may not come back.
Don.
I don't know that that's terribly different than what the quote is that Donald Trump
How
is.
low are we going to set the standard for this?
Don.
Hang on, April.
Don.
Go ahead, Jason. Because
I'm serious. I mean, Matt, I understand what you're saying. How low? How low are we going to set the standard for this president? At some point, we have to say, you know what? You're bad at this. And not just you're bad at this. We have to question whether he has the emotional strength, the moral courage, the fortitude to actually do this job. I mean, but how low is the bargain?
We don't. Again, though, let's assume now. Donald Trump is not the great communicator, and I'm completely
But
willing.
he's
I'm
president
completely
of the
willing.
United States.
I'm completely
he's
willing-
the president of the United States, and you can't normalize this one.
No,
you
we
can't.
don't. I'm completely
and he
willing
went,
to
wait a
believe
minute.
that
Let me
he-
say this to you. Let me say that the optics, the sound of this does not sound right. And I mean, he's questioned and talked about and chastised of the presidents. But then when it's time for him to go in, he's not the consoler in chief. He's causing angst in a time of grief for the family as well as the nation to hear this story play out. And just thinking about all of this president went after John McCain, the POW. It's not about politics. This man he put his life on the line for our freedoms, whether it's about taking a knee, saluting to the flag, whatever. And then yet John McCain is now the object of his fury. He says, don't push me because I'm going to fight you. John McCain is fighting for his life. He fought for this country. And then on top of that,
But it sounds like you've already decided about Donald Trump.
I'm telling you from what I see from the unique perch that I'm sitting in after covering presidents for 20 years. And I think I have the respect and understanding of what's going on. So let me shed some light in dark places
shed
for you.
some light.
Wait a minute, hold on, wait a minute. Let me shed some light in dark places for you. Then you have a president who has had 5 deferments, and people have talked about that. He's had 5 deferments, and then at the same time, this president is saying this to this widow. He's saying this to this widow, and there is a possibility that we're hearing that people from Iran as well as North Korea believing that we could be setting a posture for war, and they may war on us. You have a president saying this as we are in a tinderbox of a situation. This, you have to wonder about the mind of this
It's
president.
also important to remember the
I have
last
to
part
go.
of that
You know,
quote.
I have to go. I got to speak to a Gold Star father, which is more important in the conversation we're having now because I want to hear from him. This is an important conversation, but this Gold Star father can react to this and can shed more light on this than any one of us. And we're going to talk to him right after this. We'll be right back.